pattern. This should be. I think this is going to be in the Guild Flydresser magazine soon. I did a step by step ages ago, and I think when they got desperate for something to put in the magazine, they were going to put this in. So I think this is going to be in soon. This is a nymph emerger pattern. It's a parachuting badger. So it's like it's basically like a grey duster, but with a parachute hackle. But because it's a nymph emerger, there's no wing. It's what we call a sliding mono loop. So it's a parachute on a sliding mono loop, which is it's a bit of a really sort of like fiddly, tricky technique. But I've sort of had a play with it and discovered a much easier way to do it. So we get a bit of thread on, take off the end, and then so the sliding mono loop. So we've got some mono. This is just some. I think it's £5 mono or something. Or it's fluoro, but it doesn't matter. So we cut off a section of that. So this technique involves using a loop of mono to trap a parachute hackle. So you've got a parachute, a flat parachute with no wing. So when you looked in like the old books, it would involve you tying this in first, and then you'd sort of double it over so it wouldn't slip out. And then basically you'd have to try and tie the rest of the fly with that in your way, which was just a nightmare. So what I've started doing now, so I'll put that down there safe. So now what I'll do is I'll go on, I'll just start tying the fly I want to tie, which is like a nymph emerger. So we'll do a partridge tail, which always looks really nice. So just a little English partridge feather. So I'll put off the fluffy bits on the fluff at the bottom. And 6 to 8 fibres, something like that. So I'll tease them out, line the tips up. Hopefully they're all lined up, and then just like unzipping a banana, peel them off. And then the less you mess around with this, the better. If I keep changing hands, they're going to get out of alignment. So the less you handle them, the better. So I'm just going to swap hands. So I line that up for length. So it's going to be a nymph emerger. So we only want a really short tail, because you know the nymphs have only got the short tails. So I'm just going to sort of pinch and loop that on there. And check it for length, and that'll be fine. That'll be right. Only a little short tail. And just run the thread back up, tidy up these.
What size hook have you got ready?
That is, sorry, I forgot to say that. That is a 16 fully mill ultimate dry fly. Really nice hooks. I like these hooks. And I'm going to cut that off. I'm not going to cut it off square. I'll cut it off on a taper, so it should blend in nice and flat when I tie it down. Got a bit of a break in my thread there. Looks like a few strands have fluffed up, but we should be right. So I'm going to go back to the tail. So now dubbing, it's like a grey duster sort of imitation. So I like a bit of mould. Mould's great, but the problem with mould is it's very short staple length. So it's a really nice fine dubbing, but where the fibre lengths are really short, it just makes it a little bit unfriendly to use. So if we add a bit of Blue Rabbit to that, it just makes it really nice dubbing and really easy to use. So I'll just pull a load of that off, take out any of the, we just want the underfur, the blue underfur, so I'm just going to get rid of the now I'm mixing up way too much here. This is going to be a batch for loads, but. And this was, I saw Davey McPhail do this on his, some of his patterns, one of his grey duster patterns. And we'll just keep literally teasing it out, folding it in half, tease it out, fold it in half. So I've mixed up tons too much. So now with the dubbing, if you get dubbing like this, if it's all squished up in a lump, basically you can't do anything with it. You need it nice and light and airy. So you can see air through it. It's nice and light. And it's much easier to put on the thread. So just with finger and thumb, I wind that in an anti-clockwise direction. And all I'm worried about is that spike at the top. I'm not worried about anything else. It's a right mess hanging below, but I'm not worried about it. And then slide that up the thread. And then just do 1 or 2 turns, just to get your anchor point. And then you can tidy it up a little bit. So I put the spike on at the top, anti-clockwise. Now to tighten it up, I'm spinning clockwise. And then you just want to make a nice sort of skinny nymph shape abdomen. So this is it's a sort of cross between a grey duster and a sort of a Adams. And then run up to where the thorax is. And this is where we can get on and do our sliding mono loop. So now basically I've got the mono, I'll fold it in half. We want the loop at the tail end and the 2 ends out the front. So I'm just going to get some turns on this. So that's tied in on top of the shank. And run the thread back to the back of the thorax area. So it's amazing how much you can keep winding thread on that and that will still slide, because obviously it's a sliding mono loop. Because this is a badger, we ought to have some sort of badger hackle. I've run out of ordinary badger, this is golden badger. Just finding a feather about the right size. But this, as you'll see with this pattern, where there's no post on it, it's like a really stealthy pattern, because there's no, it is literally, emerging nymph doesn't have a wing, so this is a brilliant pattern. The only problem with it is it's really difficult to see. But on a lot of the rivers I fish, it's all really like close range stuff anyway. You're never fishing further than, sort of it's all very close range stuff. That one's a bit big. So here we go. Right, so I just take off a few fibres on the end. So we've got a bit of exposed stem. And then I want to tie this in behind the loop. Oop. Just move the base out. Hopefully that doesn't put things out of focus or anything. So to turn, you notice I'm just leaving the rest of the dubbing on the thread, because I'll be using it in a minute, so I'm just leaving it dangling on the thread.
Concave side down.
Yeah, if you want it to sit deeper, convex side down. So that's just tied in, so we just tie that in. And we just get back to the dubbing. Again, anti-clockwise spin just to get your spike. Slide that up the thread. Get your anchor point. Create the shape you want. And what I found is if you have like a bulge of that tying in point with this is where the parachute's going to be. So if you've got a bulging thorax in front, it will tilt the parachute back. So sometimes it's worth just doing a turn of dubbing behind, and then it sort of levels everything out. So the parachute will sit nice and flat. So the proportions haven't gone quite right with this, but you'll get the idea. I've got a nicer one in my fly box I can hand round. So now basically that's the tie-in done as such. So I'll do a few turns in front of that. Now this is where a gallows tool do come in handy, but if you're just getting used to using your thumb. So I'll put my left thumb in the loop, grab the hackle. You want to use, this is where tying with both hands is great, use both hands. So now I'm going to do a turn, use that hand to catch it, around, so you're going around the monolith. If I was tying on a post, on a normal parachute, each consecutive turn would go below the previous one, but with this you're doing it the opposite round. You are going to wind up the mono loop. So with these hackles, these are quite good hackles. We don't want that many turns. So that'll probably do it. So now I've got as many turns as I want. I'm going to put the hackle through the loop, put it down, put my finger there just to hold it, go through the loop again, tease it down, and I'll just run my fingers down just to hold it in position. And this is the magic bit where you pull the monofibers forwards, pull them nice and tight. You can be quite savage with it, and then just tie the mono in. I've never had one slip out. So 2 turns on that. Scissor tips again, very tight to the head, cut off the mono, and then it's just a case of tie a neat little head, whip finish. So this is a brilliant pattern. It's the only frustrating thing is it's very difficult to see, but you'll notice I've got quite a few patterns like that. But then you just look for the rise. So when I go to do, you might have noticed I did it on the last one. Whenever I whip finish, I always put my finger on the eye of the hook, just for support, and then put it tight, because it's, if you're going to do a whip finish, you might as well make it a tight one. Cut that off nice and neat. A bit of varnish on the head. So the tips again, in nice and tight, cut off that remaining stem. And if you want to, just for belt and braces, just a tiny little spot of varnish on the middle of the parachute there. So that's an emerging nymph pattern. That's a parachuting badger. It originated as a pattern with no tail. It didn't have a tail. It was a still water pattern. It was basically a grey duster, a parachute grey duster, done with this sliding mono loop. So it's a really good still water pattern as well. I've got a better one in the fly box.